Hello, HIN 620. This is a combination of chapters 8 and 9, which are data types and functions. While both of these chapters contain stuff that are not only useful, but will be used frequently by you in all walks of SQL programming, it's not as in-depth as the other chapters were, and it doesn't really warrant a whole lot of extra brain power from me to you. It's just a matter of going through the examples. Um, for data types, you'll see things like timestamp, date, time, which are, any programming languages has those types where, timestamp is the auto update feature, which is really kind of cool because if you have a row of data and you have a timestamp field on it, you don't have to automatically update it when you're inserting a row into it. That gets stamped with the time that you did it, which might come in handy for you if you need to know when someone entered something or something to that effect. So it gets updated automatically. Date and time, and then date time are kind of exactly what they say they're going to be. An interesting one that gets used frequently but is kind of behind the scenes is the blob, which will be files like a Word doc or a spreadsheet, or images if you're doing photos or something like that. So that's the kind of type you'd use for that. A text field versus the varchar field is usually used for big blocks of text, like someone has a huge explanation for something, and the field that you're letting them enter it into it asks for a lot of text, or allows a lot of text, I should say. So 1,000, 2,000 characters, you're going to want it to be using the text type. Um, One of the data type conversion things that the chapter talked about was cast and convert. So I figured we could take a quick look at those examples. So if we take this command here, where you're just selecting simple information from the invoices, and we run that, you see the data looks like this. And if you then go and run the cast version of that, which is basically the same thing, but you're casting the date into char 10. The data is a little bit prettier. It's got the columns are a little bit more set, and the integer total is now has no decimal points after it, so you kind of cleared that up. And as I mentioned, there isn't a whole lot going on that's in depth in Chapter 8. It's just kind of a read it, absorb it, and test them out and move on. And you will definitely use them later on when you say to yourself, hey, how do I convert this to that, or something. So let's just move on to Chapter 9, which is functions, and it goes a lot in depth in string functions. And I thought that 9.3 example, figure 9.3 gave you a good example of how this might be useful. So if you are looking at this example here, and there's an error because it doesn't exist in there. So set the schema, and then we run it, and you see that it's ordered by employee ID in the way that a system just kind of blindly looks at an ID, because this starts with a 1, so it's first, and then 17 also starts with a 1, so that's going to come before the 2, which really doesn't make any sense. So you can try other variations of that to help you sort it. And so it says cast this as a number. So take that thing that it's using as a text and make it a number, so it knows that it's a number, and it knows that 1 is or 17 is greater than 3, is greater than 2, etc. There's also some other clever ways of doing it by something that I've used frequently is padding. So you take a string and you say, I want to pad 2 characters such that if it doesn't have 2, make the left, because it's an L pad, make the leftmost character a 0. And so it's not a number, it's still a text at this point, but it now knows that it's 0, 1, 0, 2, and 0, 3, so it sorts it correctly. Of course, this kind of falls over if you get to 99 and you go over that and get to 100 and you have problems with that again. But this just gives you an example of some different ways to do it and some different commands to use. And basically, when it comes to the string commands, if you can think of something that you need to do, it exists. Whether you want to take a substring out of the string, or you want to take just the right part of it or the left part of it, or replace something in it, all those commands exist. So just beware that if there's something that you're looking for, it's already there. The number and date formatting functions are ones that you'll use rather frequently, I would imagine. It's a good way to take an internally stored value and display it how you want it. For example, we have the date format function, and we use now, which is the current time, and let's say I just want to see it in month/date/year format. If I run it, it just does it like that, which is a common version of it. But let's say I'm making some fancy report and I want it to be in even nicer format with fully spelled out. So it says Wednesday, March 14, 2018. And trust me, there is absolutely no need to memorize what these are, what's capital W versus small w, whatever like that. There's many charts all over the web that you can just go to when you need it, but I wouldn't waste brain power memorizing what those specific ones are. Some other good date functions to be aware of are date add, date diff, and some of the conversion functions like to days and to time and stuff like that. Those are also useful. I just thought I'd show you some examples of the date add, because this is actually a really good way if you wanted to do year-over-year comparisons and you wanted to do interval -1 year or something like that. So actually, why don't we just do that, -1 year, and we'll put that one on hold for now. And so it shows that from now, a year ago is this this date. And if you want to do that on a rolling pattern, where it's not always a year from March 14th, but a year from the current day, you can use a command like this that says, regardless of when I run this program, make it be a year ago. So that's something that could come in really handy. And if we then have a date diff, which is basically a way of saying how many days are there in between this and that, and you could come up with the math to kind of do it, but the math would have to have special cases for leap years and stuff like that. So it's really a good idea to just use the functions that exist. And so if you run that, it says that April 4th is 21 days different than now. So those could come in very handy as well. And the final thing in this chapter that I wanted to point out is the select case command, which is very handy for where there's multiple things that you want to check on. Rather than saying if, you can just say, you can say you case on this particular column value, and it's basically if it equals 1, then do this. If it equals 2, then do this. And so this is kind of an easier way and a much more pleasing to the eye way of doing multiple ifs. So if we run this, we get an error because I am in the wrong schema. Am I now? I guess I am. So let's go to AP, run it, and there we go. So the terms ID was 3. So like I said here, it said net due 30 days. So that's just a great way to make do multiple ifs and do it in a very readable sort of way. So I figured I'd go through exercise 2 because that's one where you'd just be looking up charts to see what the various codes are that you'd want to put in there to make the dates look like what you want them to. So it's really just kind of saving time, not having to make you look through the charts. So what you're selecting here is the original date, and what's cool about that is you get to see how it's actually stored in the database. So every date is stored the same way, with the 4 digits for the year, and then 2 for the month, and then 2 for the day, and then the time in hour colon second, hours colon minutes colon seconds. And then you have these various commands that allow you to format it in a different way depending on how you want to look at it, or in the case of the third column, if you just want to see the time. Sometimes you only care about the time and you don't really care about the date, so you want to strip that off. So format 2 shows you how to strip off the time so that you just see the date, and column 12-hour column shows you how to strip off the time so you don't have to see the date. So this is basically just how you're going to do it. You're just going to find the various formats, put them in there, and the output is just like this. So it's really just, it's more looking things up than using excess gray matter. So that's about it. See you next time.